ancient Egypt, a civilization that flourished for over 3 millennia along the fertile banks of the Nile River, stands as a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and a profound connection to the divine. Its legacy, etched in monumental pyramids, intricate hieroglyphs, and timeless artifacts, continues to captivate and inspire, offering a window into a world where life and death were inextricably linked, and the pursuit of eternity shaped every aspect of existence. From the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE, marked by the legendary Narmer Palette, to its eventual decline and absorption into the Roman Empire, ancient Egypt witnessed a succession of powerful dynasties, each contributing to a rich tapestry of cultural, religious, and technological advancements. The pharaohs, revered as living gods, held absolute power, their reigns often characterized by ambitious building projects, military campaigns, and the maintenance of cosmic order, or Ma'at. Life for the majority of ancient Egyptians revolved around the rhythmic cycles of the Nile. The annual inundation, a predictable and life-giving flood, deposited rich, fertile silt, transforming the arid landscape into a verdant agricultural paradise. This natural bounty allowed for the cultivation of staple crops like emmer, wheat, and barley, forming the basis of their diet and economy. Farmers, the backbone of society, toiled in the fields, their lives dictated by the seasons of inundation, planting, and harvest. Beyond agriculture, Egyptian society was a vibrant mosaic of artisans, scribes, priests, and merchants. Skilled craftsmen meticulously carved intricate reliefs, painted vibrant tomb scenes, and fashioned exquisite jewelry from gold, silver, and precious stones. Scribes, highly respected for their literacy, played a crucial role in administration, recording everything from grain harvests to royal decrees. Women, while primarily responsible for the household, enjoyed a remarkable degree of legal and economic independence compared to many other ancient civilizations, owning property, engaging in trade, and even holding positions of religious authority. Their homes, typically constructed from mud brick, were designed to provide respite from the desert heat, often featuring open courtyards and rooftop terraces. Family was the cornerstone of society, with strong emphasis on filial piety and the continuation of the lineage. Children were cherished, and education, particularly for boys, was valued, preparing them for roles in the bureaucracy or priesthood. Ancient Egyptian civilization was profoundly shaped by its intricate religious beliefs, particularly those concerning the afterlife. The concept of an eternal existence beyond death was not merely a comforting thought, but a central pillar of their society, influencing everything from monumental architecture to daily rituals. The Egyptians believed that life on earth was a fleeting prelude to a much grander, everlasting journey in the Duat, the underworld. This belief system provided a framework for their moral code, their artistic expressions, and their societal structure. At the heart of their spiritual understanding was the idea of the Ka and the Ba. The Ka was the life force, the spiritual double of a person which remained in the tomb after death, requiring sustenance and offerings to persist. The Ba, often depicted as a human-headed bird, represented the personality and soul, capable of leaving the tomb and traveling between the earthly realm and the divine. For a successful transition to the afterlife, both the Ka and the Ba needed to be preserved and reunited with the physical body, or at least a suitable substitute like a statue, in a process known as mummification. Mummification was a meticulous and sacred process developed over centuries, designed to preserve the body in a recognizable form for the Ka and Ba. It was a testament to their advanced understanding of anatomy and chemistry, as well as their unwavering faith. The process typically lasted 70 days, mirroring the perceived duration of the star Sothis' disappearance from the night sky, a period associated with renewal and rebirth. The first step involved the removal of internal organs, as these were prone to decay. The brain was often extracted through the nostrils, while the lungs, liver, intestines, and stomach were carefully removed through an incision on the left side of the abdomen. The heart, however, was usually left in place, as it was believed to be the seat of intelligence, emotion, and the individual's true essence necessary for judgment in the afterlife. Once removed, the organs were treated with natron, a natural salt, to dehydrate them, and then placed in canopic jars. each dedicated to one of the four sons of Horus: Duamatef, stomach; Kebasinnuef, intestines; Happy lungs; and Imsidi, liver. These jars were often beautifully crafted, topped with lids representing the heads of these deities, symbolizing their protective role over the deceased's vital organs. The body cavity was then thoroughly cleaned and packed with natron to draw out all moisture. After several weeks, the natron was removed and the body was carefully cleaned and anointed with sacred oils and resins. The final stage involved wrapping the body in layers upon layers of linen bandages, often interspersed with amulets and charms intended to protect the deceased on their journey. A death mask, often made of gold or painted cartonnage, was placed over the head and shoulders, providing an idealized image of the deceased and serving as a spiritual anchor for the Ka. The journey through the Duat was fraught with perils and challenges, requiring the deceased to navigate treacherous landscapes, encounter fearsome demons, and answer complex riddles posed by divine beings. To aid them in this perilous voyage, funerary texts, such as the Book of the Dead, were inscribed on tomb walls, papyri, and sarcophagi. These texts contain spells, prayers, and instructions, acting as a spiritual guidebook to ensure a safe passage and a favorable outcome in the final judgment. The most crucial moment in the afterlife journey was the weighing of the heart ceremony, presided over by Osiris, the god of the underworld, and a tribunal of 42 divine judges. The deceased's heart, believed to be the repository of all their actions and moral character, was placed on one side of a scale, balanced against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order. Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, recorded the outcome, while Amit, the devourer of the dead, a fearsome creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, awaited to consume the hearts of the unworthy. Only those whose hearts were lighter than the feather of Ma'at, signifying a life lived in accordance with truth and justice, were granted passage into the field of reeds, a paradise of eternal abundance and tranquility. This ultimate reward, a mirror image of their earthly existence, but free from suffering and toil, was the driving force behind their meticulous preparations for the afterlife. Ancient Egyptian art and architecture were not merely aesthetic expressions, but served a profound religious and symbolic purpose. The pyramids, colossal tombs built for pharaohs, were not just burial sites, but cosmic mountains, stairways to the heavens, designed to facilitate the pharaoh's ascent to the realm of the gods. Their precise alignment with celestial bodies, particularly the stars of Orion, reflects a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and a deep reverence for the cosmos. Temples, dedicated to a pantheon of gods and goddesses, were sacred spaces where rituals were performed to maintain cosmic balance and appease the deities. Their massive pylons, hypostyle halls, and inner sanctuaries were adorned with intricate carvings and vibrant paintings depicting mythological scenes, royal triumphs, and offerings to the gods. These artistic expressions, characterized by their formality, symbolism, and adherence to strict conventions, were intended to convey eternal truths and ensure the continuity of divine order. Sculpture, from monumental statues of pharaohs to delicate figurines of deities, captured the idealized forms of gods and rulers, embodying their divine essence and eternal power. The use of durable materials like granite, basalt, and diorite ensured the longevity of these artistic creations, reflecting the Egyptians' desire for permanence and immortality. The influence of ancient Egypt extends far beyond its geographical and temporal boundaries. Its advancements in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and engineering laid the groundwork for future civilizations. Its artistic conventions and architectural marvels inspired subsequent cultures, from the Greeks and Romans to the Renaissance and beyond. The allure of its mysteries, the grandeur of its monuments, and the profound wisdom embedded in its beliefs continue to fascinate scholars, artists, and the general public alike. In essence, ancient Egypt was a civilization built on the bedrock of faith, a deep respect for the natural world, and an unwavering belief in the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. Its enduring legacy serves as a powerful reminder of humanity's timeless quest for meaning, immortality, and a harmonious existence with the cosmos. The whispers of the pharaohs, carried on the desert winds, continue to echo through time, inviting us to explore the depths of their wisdom and marvel at the enduring power of their civilization. Beyond the grand narratives of pharaohs and gods, the rhythm of daily life in ancient Egypt was a fascinating blend of practicality, tradition, and devotion. The family unit was the cornerstone of society, with strong emphasis on lineage and continuity. Marriages were often arranged, though love and affection were clearly valued, as evidenced by numerous love poems and inscriptions. Children were seen as blessings and were cherished, playing an integral role in the household and community. Education, while not universal, was highly valued, particularly for boys from elite families who aspired to become scribes, priests, or administrators. Girls, on the other hand, were primarily trained in domestic skills, though some, particularly those from wealthier families, might have received an education in music, dance, or even medicine. Housing varied significantly based on social status. The vast majority of Egyptians lived in modest mud brick homes designed to keep cool in the scorching desert heat. These houses typically consisted of a few rooms, often arranged around a central courtyard, which served as a communal space for cooking, eating, and socializing. Rooftop terraces were common, providing an additional living area, especially during the cooler evenings. Furniture was sparse but functional, consisting mainly of low tables, stools, and beds made of wood or reeds. Storage jars for food and water were essential, reflecting the importance of preserving resources in an arid climate. Diet was largely vegetarian, based on the staple crops of emmer, wheat, and barley, which were used to make bread and beer, the latter being a fundamental part of the Egyptian diet, consumed by all ages and social classes. Fish from the Nile provided a crucial source of protein, while meat, primarily beef, goat, and poultry, was consumed less frequently, often reserved for special occasions or the wealthy. Fruits and vegetables such as dates, figs, grapes, onions, garlic, and lettuce supplemented their diet, providing essential nutrients. Clothing was simple and practical, designed for the hot climate. Men typically wore kilts or loincloths, while women wore long flowing dresses, often made of linen. Both sexes adorned themselves with jewelry, including necklaces, bracelets, and earrings crafted from gold, silver, faience, and semi-precious stones. Cosmetics, particularly kohl eyeliner, were widely used by both men and women, not only for aesthetic purposes but also for protection against the harsh sun and as a deterrent against insects. Leisure activities were an important part of daily life. Board games such as Senet and Mian were popular pastimes, enjoyed by all social strata. Music and dance were integral to religious ceremonies and social gatherings, with instruments like harps, flutes, and lutes providing accompaniment. Hunting and fishing were also common, serving both as sources of food and recreation. The Egyptians also enjoyed feasting and celebrations, often accompanied by copious amounts of beer and wine, reflecting a society that, despite its focus on the afterlife, embraced the joys of earthly existence. The Nile River was not merely a geographical feature, it was the very essence of ancient Egyptian civilization, the lifeblood that sustained its existence and shaped its worldview. Without the Nile, the vast stretches of desert would have rendered the land uninhabitable. Its annual inundation, a predictable and benevolent flood, was the most significant event in the Egyptian calendar, dictating the agricultural cycle and, by extension, the rhythm of life itself. Each year, typically from July to October, the Nile would swell, overflowing its banks and depositing a rich, fertile layer of black silt across the floodplains. This natural fertilization process eliminated the need for artificial fertilizers and ensured bountiful harvests. The Egyptians meticulously observed and recorded the Nile's rise and fall, developing sophisticated irrigation systems, including canals, dikes, and shadufs, water lifting devices, to manage the floodwaters and distribute them efficiently to their fields. This mastery of water management allowed them to transform a narrow strip of fertile land into an agricultural powerhouse capable of feeding a large and growing population. Beyond agriculture, the Nile served as the primary artery for transportation and communication. Boats, ranging from simple papyrus rafts to large wooden vessels, plied its waters, transporting goods, people, and building materials across the vast kingdom. This efficient network facilitated trade, enabled the movement of armies, and fostered a sense of unity among the disparate regions of Egypt. The river also provided a crucial source of fish, a dietary staple, and papyrus, a versatile plant used for making paper, boats, ropes, and sandals. The Nile's influence extended beyond the practical realm, deeply permeating Egyptian religious beliefs and mythology. It was revered as a divine entity, often personified as the god Hapi, who brought fertility and abundance. The cyclical nature of the Nile's inundation mirrored the Egyptian belief in cycles of life, death, and rebirth, reinforcing their understanding of cosmic order and the eternal journey. The river's banks were dotted with temples and tombs, strategically placed to harness its spiritual power and facilitate the deceased passage to the afterlife. In essence, the Nile was not just a river, it was a sacred landscape, a living deity, and the indispensable foundation upon which one of the greatest civilizations in history was built. The ancient Egyptian pantheon was vast and complex, populated by a multitude of gods and goddesses, each embodying different aspects of the natural world, human experience, and cosmic forces. Unlike many other polytheistic religions, the Egyptian deities often had fluid roles and could merge or transform, reflecting the dynamic nature of their beliefs. Their worship was not merely a matter of ritual, but an integral part of daily life, influencing moral conduct, artistic expression, and political power. At the apex of the pantheon stood Ra, the sun god, creator of the universe and source of all life. He was often depicted with a falcon's head crowned by a sun disk, symbolizing his dominion over the heavens. His daily journey across the sky in his solar bark represented the cycle of creation, death, and rebirth, a fundamental concept in Egyptian cosmology. Other prominent solar deities included Atum, the self-created god, and Khepri, the scarab beetle god, representing the rising sun and regeneration. Osiris, the god of the underworld, resurrection, and fertility, held immense significance. His myth, involving his murder by his jealous brother Set and his subsequent resurrection by his devoted wife Isis, became a powerful narrative of triumph over death and the promise of eternal life. Osiris was often depicted as a mummified king, holding the crook and flail, symbols of kingship and divine authority. His annual festival, celebrated with great reverence, reenacted his passion and resurrection, reinforcing the hopes of the living for a blessed afterlife. Isis, the great mother goddess, was revered as the epitome of maternal love, magic, and healing. Her unwavering devotion to Osiris and her role in resurrecting him made her a powerful symbol of loyalty and perseverance. She was often depicted with a throne on her head, symbolizing her connection to kingship, and was widely worshipped as a protector of women, children, and the vulnerable. Her cult spread far beyond Egypt, influencing Roman and Greek religious practices. Horus, the falcon-headed god, was the son of Osiris and Isis and the rightful heir to the throne. He represented kingship, justice, and vengeance, and was often depicted battling Set to avenge his father's death. The living pharaoh was considered the embodiment of Horus, thus legitimizing their rule and connecting them directly to the divine lineage. This divine connection elevated the pharaoh to a sacred status, making him the intermediary between humanity and the gods. Other significant deities included Thoth, the god of wisdom, writing, and magic, often depicted as an ibis or baboon; Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty, music, and motherhood, often depicted as a cow or a woman with cow horns; Anubis, the jackal-headed god of mummification and the afterlife, who guided the deceased through the underworld; and Ma'at, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order, whose feather was used in the weighing of the heart ceremony. The worship of these deities involved elaborate rituals, offerings, and festivals. Temples, seen as the dwelling places of the gods, were meticulously maintained by priests and priestesses who performed daily ceremonies to honor the divine. The Egyptians believed that by maintaining Ma'at, the cosmic balance, through their worship and righteous conduct, they ensured the prosperity of their land and the continuation of the universe. The pharaohs of ancient Egypt were more than just kings. They were considered living gods, the earthly embodiment of Horus, and the direct link between humanity and the divine. Their rule was absolute, encompassing religious, political, and military authority. The stability and prosperity of Egypt were believed to be directly tied to the pharaoh's ability to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order, through their actions and rituals. The history of ancient Egypt is often divided into several periods, marked by the rise and fall of dynasties and significant shifts in power and culture. The early dynastic period, CF 3102,686 BCE, saw the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under a single ruler, laying the foundation for the pharaonic state. This period is characterized by the development of hieroglyphic writing, early monumental architecture, and the establishment of the capital at Memphis. The Old Kingdom, c. 2686-2181 BCE, is often referred to as the Age of the Pyramids, a testament to the colossal building projects undertaken by pharaohs like Djoser, Sneferu, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. The step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, designed by the visionary architect Imhotep, is considered the world's first stone building of monumental scale. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Khufu, remains one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, a marvel of engineering and a symbol of the pharaoh's immense power and divine connection. During this period, the concept of the pharaoh as a divine king reached its zenith, and the centralized administration became highly sophisticated. The first intermediate period, c. 2181-2055 BCE, was a time of political fragmentation and decentralization as the power of the pharaoh waned and regional nomarchs, governors, gained more autonomy. This period of instability was followed by the Middle Kingdom, c. 2055-1650 BCE, a period of reunification and cultural flourishing. Pharaohs like Mentuhotep II, Senusret III, and Amenemhat III restored central authority, expanded Egypt's borders, and initiated a golden age of literature, art, and architecture. The focus shifted from massive pyramids to more modest, yet still impressive rock-cut tombs and temples, reflecting a change in religious beliefs and funerary practices. The second intermediate period, c. 1650-1550 BCE, saw the invasion and rule of the Hyksos, a foreign people from Western Asia, who introduced new military technologies such as the horse-drawn chariot. This period of foreign domination eventually led to a resurgence of Egyptian power in the beginning of the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom, c. 1550-1070 BCE, is considered the golden age of ancient Egypt, a period of unprecedented wealth, power, and imperial expansion. Pharaohs like Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, Seti I, and Ramesses II ruled over a vast empire extending Egypt's influence into Nubia, the Levant, and Syria. This era witnessed the construction of magnificent temples at Karnak and Luxor, the Valley of the Kings, and the colossal statues of Abu Simbel. The New Kingdom pharaohs, particularly Ramesses II, engaged in extensive building programs, leaving behind an indelible mark on the landscape of Egypt. The Amarna period, under Akhenaten, saw a brief but radical shift to monotheism, with the worship of the Aten, the sun disk, as the sole deity. This religious revolution, however, was short-lived, and traditional polytheism was restored after Akhenaten's death. The late period, c. 1000 and 7332 BCE, was characterized by a series of foreign invasions and periods of intermittent Egyptian rule. The Assyrians, Persians, and Greeks successively conquered Egypt, each leaving their mark on the ancient land. Despite these challenges, Egyptian culture and traditions persisted, demonstrating their remarkable resilience. Finally, the Ptolemaic dynasty, 332-30 BCE, founded by Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander the Great's generals, ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries. This period saw the blending of Egyptian and Hellenistic cultures, with the construction of the Library of Alexandria and the Lighthouse of Pharaohs. The last pharaoh of Egypt was Cleopatra VII, whose death marked the end of an era and the beginning of Roman rule. Throughout these millennia, the pharaohs, through their divine authority, monumental constructions, and unwavering commitment to Ma'at, shaped the destiny of ancient Egypt, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire awe and wonder. The ancient Egyptians developed one of the world's earliest and most enduring writing systems, hieroglyphs. Far from being mere pictures, hieroglyphs were a complex system combining logographic, syllabic, and alphabetic elements capable of expressing nuanced ideas and abstract concepts. The word hieroglyph itself comes from the Greek words hieros, sacred, and glyphing, to carve, reflecting their initial use primarily in religious and monumental contexts. Early hieroglyphs, dating back to around 3200 BCE, were primarily pictographic, representing objects or ideas directly. Over time, the system evolved to include phonograms, symbols representing sounds, and determinatives, which clarified the meaning of words. This intricate system allowed for a rich and expressive written language, used for everything from royal decrees and religious texts to administrative records and personal letters. Hieroglyphs were meticulously carved into stone on temple walls, tombs, and obelisks, ensuring their permanence and conveying messages to both the living and the divine. The vibrant colors that once adorned these carvings, though faded by time, hint at the visual splendor of ancient Egyptian monuments. The act of writing itself was considered sacred, and scribes, who underwent rigorous training, held a privileged position in society, acting as custodians of knowledge and tradition. For more practical and everyday use, two cursive scripts evolved from hieroglyphs, hieratic and demotic. Hieratic, a more simplified and flowing script, was used primarily for religious texts, administrative documents, and literary works written on papyrus, ostraca, pottery shards, and linen. Demotic, an even more abbreviated and informal script, emerged later and became the dominant form of writing for daily transactions, legal documents, and private correspondence during the late period and Ptolemaic era. The decipherment of hieroglyphs remained a mystery for centuries until the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in 1799. This basalt stele, inscribed with the same decree in hieroglyphic, demotic, and ancient Greek scripts, provided the key that allowed Jean-Francois Champollion to unlock the secrets of this ancient language in 1822. The Rosetta Stone not only revolutionized our understanding of ancient Egypt, but also opened up a vast archive of historical, religious, and literary texts, offering unparalleled insights into their civilization. Beyond their artistic and architectural prowess, the ancient Egyptians made significant contributions to various fields of science and technology, often driven by practical needs and religious beliefs. Their understanding of mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and engineering was remarkably advanced for their time, laying foundations that influenced subsequent civilizations. In mathematics, the Egyptians developed a sophisticated system based on a decimal base 10 notation, though without a concept of zero. They were proficient in arithmetic, including addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and could work with fractions. Their knowledge of geometry was particularly impressive, evident in the precise construction of their pyramids and temples. They could calculate the areas of rectangles, triangles, and circles, and the volumes of cylinders and pyramids. The Rhind mathematical papyrus, dating to around 1650 BCE, is a primary source of our knowledge of Egyptian mathematics, containing problems and solutions related to practical applications like land measurement and bread distribution. Astronomy played a crucial role in Egyptian religion and daily life. Their observations of celestial bodies, particularly the sun, moon, and stars, allowed them to develop a highly accurate calendar, which was primarily solar. The Egyptian calendar consisted of 365 days, divided into 12 months of 30 days each, plus an additional 5 epigomenal days at the end of the year. This calendar was remarkably stable and was later adopted by the Romans as the basis for the Julian calendar. Their astronomical knowledge also guided the orientation of their temples and pyramids, many of which were precisely aligned with solstices, equinoxes, or specific stars. Ancient Egyptian medicine was surprisingly advanced, combining empirical observation with magical and religious practices. Medical papyri, such as the Edwin Smith Papyrus, a surgical treatise, and the Ebers Papyrus, a compendium of medical knowledge, reveal a detailed understanding of anatomy, physiology, and various diseases. Egyptian physicians were skilled in diagnosing illnesses, performing surgical procedures, including trepanation, and setting broken bones. They had a vast pharmacopoeia of herbal remedies and developed sophisticated techniques for wound care and pain management. The concept of specialization was also present, with doctors focusing on specific areas like dentistry, ophthalmology, or gynecology. Their engineering feats, most notably the construction of the pyramids, remain a source of awe and speculation. Without the use of wheels or iron tools, they managed to quarry, transport, and precisely place millions of massive stone blocks. This required an immense understanding of logistics, labor management, and basic physics, including levers, ramps, and possibly rollers. Their mastery of irrigation systems, including canals and shut-offs, transformed the arid landscape into fertile farmland, demonstrating their hydraulic engineering skills. They also excelled in shipbuilding, constructing large wooden vessels for trade and transportation along the Nile and across the Mediterranean. In metallurgy, the Egyptians were pioneers in working with copper, bronze, gold, and silver. They developed sophisticated techniques for mining, smelting, and casting metals, producing a wide array of tools, weapons, jewelry, and cult objects. Their exquisite goldwork, exemplified by the treasures of Tutankhamun, showcases their unparalleled craftsmanship and artistic sensibility. These scientific and technological achievements were not pursued in isolation, but were deeply integrated into their worldview, serving both practical needs and their profound religious beliefs. They were a testament to the Egyptians' meticulous observation, systematic approach, and their enduring quest for order and harmony in both the earthly and cosmic realms. Ancient Egyptian society was rigidly structured, resembling a pyramid with the pharaoh at its apex, followed by a small elite of nobles, priests, and scribes, and a broad base of commoners, farmers, and laborers. This hierarchical system, while seemingly inflexible, provided a framework for stability and order, ensuring the smooth functioning of the state and the maintenance of Ma'at, the cosmic balance. At the very top was the pharaoh, the divine ruler, considered a living god and the intermediary between humanity and the deities. His power was absolute, encompassing religious, political, and military authority. The pharaoh owned all the land, controlled the economy, and was responsible for maintaining justice and order throughout the kingdom. His well-being was intrinsically linked to the prosperity of Egypt, and elaborate rituals and ceremonies were performed to ensure his continued divine favor. Beneath the pharaoh were the viziers, who served as the chief ministers and administrators of the state. They were responsible for overseeing the bureaucracy, managing the treasury, administering justice, and supervising public works projects. The vizier was often the second most powerful person in Egypt, acting as the pharaoh's right hand and ensuring the efficient functioning of the vast administrative machinery. The high priests and priestesses formed a powerful and influential class, responsible for the worship of the gods and the maintenance of the temples. They performed daily rituals, oversaw religious festivals, and managed the vast estates and resources of the temples, which often held significant economic power. Their role was crucial in maintaining the divine favor that was believed to ensure the prosperity of Egypt. Nobles and officials comprised the provincial governors, nomarchs, military commanders, and other high-ranking administrators. They managed the various nomes, provinces of Egypt, collected taxes, raised troops, and maintained local order. Their positions were often hereditary, and they enjoyed considerable wealth and influence, living in large estates and often maintaining their own retinues of servants and scribes. Scribes occupied a highly respected position in society due to their literacy and specialized knowledge. They were essential for the functioning of the state, recording everything from legal documents and administrative records to religious texts and literary works. The scribes underwent rigorous training, often beginning in childhood. and their profession offered a path to social mobility and influence. They were exempt from manual labor and taxation, further highlighting their privileged status. Soldiers played a vital role in protecting Egypt's borders, maintaining internal order, and expanding the empire during periods of conquest. While initially a less prominent class, their importance grew significantly during the New Kingdom as Egypt became a major imperial power. The soldiers were organized into regiments and were well trained, equipped with bows, spears, and shields. Successful campaigns brought wealth and prestige, and veterans were often rewarded with land and other benefits. Artisans and craftsmen formed a diverse group of skilled laborers who produced the goods and artifacts necessary for daily life and religious practices. This included stonemasons, carpenters, potters, weavers, jewelers, painters, and sculptors. They often worked in workshops attached to temples, palaces, or noble estates, producing everything from utilitarian pottery to exquisite works of art. Their skills were highly valued, and their creations, particularly those found in tombs, provide invaluable insights into ancient Egyptian culture and beliefs. At the base of the social pyramid were the farmers and laborers, who constituted the vast majority of the population. Their lives were dictated by the agricultural cycle of the Nile, toiling in the fields to produce food for the entire society. They were also conscripted for large-scale public works projects, such as the construction of pyramids, temples, and irrigation systems. Despite their essential role, they had little social mobility and lived modest lives, often paying a significant portion of their produce as taxes to the state and the temples. Slaves, while present in ancient Egyptian society, were not as numerous or as central to the economy as in some other ancient civilizations. They were often prisoners of war or individuals who had fallen into debt. Slaves could be owned by individuals, temples, or the state, and their roles varied from domestic servants to laborers in mines or quarries. However, they could often earn their freedom, and their legal rights were more protected than in many other societies. This intricate social structure, reinforced by religious beliefs and a strong sense of collective identity, allowed ancient Egypt to maintain remarkable stability and achieve extraordinary feats of civilization for millennia. Each class, from the divine pharaoh to the humble farmer, played a defined role in the grand cosmic order, contributing to the enduring legacy of this remarkable civilization. Childhood in ancient Egypt, while often short due to high infant mortality rates, was generally a period of nurturing and play, preparing the young for their roles in society. Children were highly valued, seen as a continuation of the family line and a source of support in old age. The birth of a child was a joyous occasion, celebrated with rituals and offerings to deities like Taweret, the hippopotamus goddess of childbirth and fertility, and Bez, the dwarf god of protection. Infants were typically breastfed for several years, and both parents, though mothers bore the primary responsibility, were involved in their upbringing. Toys such as dolls, wooden animals, spinning tops, and miniature chariots have been found in archaeological excavations, indicating that play was an important part of a child's development. Games like wrestling and various ball games were also popular, fostering physical agility and social interaction. As children grew, their responsibilities increased. Girls were primarily trained by their mothers in domestic skills, including cooking, weaving, and managing the household. They learned to grind grain, bake bread, brew beer, and care for younger siblings. While their education was largely practical, some girls from elite families might have received instruction in music, dance, or even basic literacy, particularly if they were destined for roles as priestesses or entertainers. Boys, on the other hand, had a more varied educational path depending on their social standing. For the vast majority, education was informal, learned through apprenticeship with their fathers or other male relatives. Sons of farmers learned to work the land, tend to livestock, and manage irrigation systems. Sons of craftsmen learned the skills of their trade, starting as apprentices and gradually mastering their craft through hands-on experience. For boys from wealthier or aristocratic families, formal education was a pathway to social mobility and a career in the bureaucracy, priesthood, or military. These boys attended schools attached to temples or government institutions, often starting around the age of 5 or 6. The curriculum was rigorous, focusing primarily on literacy and numeracy. Students learned to read and write hieroglyphs, hieratic, and later demotic scripts, copying text on ostraca and papyrus. They practiced arithmetic, geometry, and astronomy, skills essential for administration, engineering, and religious duties. Discipline in these schools could be strict, with corporal punishment not uncommon, as evidenced by maxims like, "The boy's ear is on his back, he listens when he is beaten." However, the ultimate goal was to produce well-rounded individuals capable of serving the state and maintaining the intricate social order. Beyond academic subjects, students were also taught ethics, proper conduct, and the importance of Ma'at, the cosmic order. Girls, while not typically attending formal schools, were educated within the home and community. They learned practical skills essential for managing a household, raising children, and contributing to the family's economic well-being. In some cases, noble women and royal women received a more extensive education, including literacy, to prepare them for their roles in managing large estates or participating in religious ceremonies. The emphasis for both boys and girls was on preparing them for their designated roles within the highly structured society, ensuring the continuity of traditions and the prosperity of the civilization. In ancient Egypt, the concept of law and justice was inextricably linked to Ma'at, the divine principle of truth, balance, order, harmony, law, morality, and justice. The pharaoh, as the living embodiment of Horus and the chief custodian of Ma'at, was ultimately responsible for upholding justice throughout the land. However, the practical administration of justice was delegated to a sophisticated legal system that, while lacking codified laws in the modern sense, relied on precedent, royal decrees, and the wisdom of judges. The legal system was hierarchical, mirroring the social structure. Local courts, often presided over by village elders or respected individuals, handled minor disputes and everyday grievances. More serious cases involving property disputes, theft, or violent crimes were brought before higher courts such as the Great Council, Kenbet, or the Court of the Vizier. The Vizier, as the Chief Justice, held immense power and was responsible for overseeing the entire legal apparatus. Legal proceedings were generally oral, with both parties presenting their arguments and evidence. Witnesses were called, and oaths were taken in the name of the gods. While torture was not a common practice, severe punishments, including mutilation, forced labor, and execution, were meted out for serious offenses, particularly those against the state or religious institutions. However, the emphasis was often on restitution and reconciliation, especially in civil cases. One of the most significant aspects of Egyptian justice was the belief in divine judgment in the afterlife. The weighing of the heart ceremony, where the deceased heart was balanced against the feather of Ma'at, served as a powerful deterrent against wrongdoing and encouraged ethical conduct during life. This belief reinforced the idea that justice was not merely a human construct, but a cosmic imperative, with consequences extending beyond earthly existence. Legal documents, such as wills, contracts, and court records, were meticulously kept by scribes, providing valuable insights into the workings of the legal system. These documents reveal a society that, despite its authoritarian structure, placed a high value on fairness and the resolution of disputes. The pursuit of Ma'at permeated every aspect of Egyptian life, from the grand pronouncements of the pharaoh to the daily interactions of ordinary citizens, ensuring a degree of order and stability that contributed to the civilization's longevity. Religion was not confined to grand temples and elaborate funerary rites. It was an integral part of daily life for ancient Egyptians, permeating every action, decision, and aspiration. From the moment they awoke until they went to sleep, Egyptians engaged in a myriad of rituals, prayers, and offerings designed to maintain harmony with the divine and ensure the continued favor of the gods. Each household had its own small shrines dedicated to specific deities, often including household gods like Bez and Taweret, who protected against evil and ensured fertility. Daily offerings of food, drink, and incense were made to these domestic deities, accompanied by prayers for health, prosperity, and protection. Amulets, worn as jewelry or placed in homes, provided additional magical protection against illness, accidents, and malevolent forces. Temples, the dwelling places of the gods, were centers of religious activity. While only priests and the pharaoh could enter the innermost sanctuaries, the outer courtyards were accessible to the public, who would bring offerings and seek divine intervention. Daily rituals in the temples involved the awakening, washing, dressing, and feeding of the cult statue of the deity, a symbolic act that ensured the god's continued presence and benevolence. Hymns were chanted, incense was burned, and elaborate processions were held, especially during major festivals. Festivals were joyous occasions that punctuated the agricultural and religious calendar, bringing communities together in celebration and reaffirming their connection to the divine. The Opet festival, for example, celebrated the annual journey of the cult statues of Amun, Mut, and Khonsu from Karnak to Luxor, symbolizing the rejuvenation of the gods and the pharaoh. The beautiful festival of the valley honored the deceased, with families visiting tombs and sharing meals with their departed loved ones, reinforcing the continuity between the living and the dead. Dreams were considered important channels of divine communication, and dream interpretation was a recognized practice. Oracles, where priests would interpret the will of the gods through various signs and omens, were also consulted for important decisions. Magic, or Heka, was not seen as separate from religion, but as an inherent part of the divine order, used for healing, protection, and influencing events. Magical spells and incantations were often inscribed on papyri or amulets, providing practical tools for navigating the challenges of life. Even seemingly mundane activities were imbued with religious significance. The act of baking bread, brewing beer, or cultivating crops was seen as a participation in the divine creative process. The rising and setting of the sun, the annual inundation of the Nile, and the cycle of birth and death were all manifestations of the god's power and the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. Through these daily rituals and practices, the ancient Egyptians sought to live in harmony with the divine, ensuring their well-being in this life and a blessed passage to the next. The military of ancient Egypt, while not always the dominant force it became in the New Kingdom, played a crucial role in defending the nation's borders, maintaining internal security, and expanding its influence. The perception of Egypt as a peaceful, insular civilization is largely a misconception. Warfare was a recurring reality, driven by the need to protect valuable resources, secure trade routes, and assert pharaonic authority. In the Old and Middle Kingdoms, the military was primarily a defensive force composed of conscripted soldiers and local militias. Their main duties were to guard the frontiers against incursions from Nubian tribes to the south, Libyan nomads to the west, and Asiatic peoples to the northeast. Fortifications such as the massive mud brick fortresses built in Nubia during the Middle Kingdom served as strategic bases for controlling trade and projecting power. The New Kingdom marked a significant transformation in the Egyptian military. The humiliating experience of the Hyksos occupation during the Second Intermediate Period led to a military revolution. The Egyptians adopted and perfected the military technologies of their former rulers, most notably the horse-drawn chariot and the composite bow. This new professional army, composed of standing regiments and elite chariot corps, became a formidable offensive force, enabling pharaohs like Thutmose III and Ramesses II to forge a vast empire. The army was organized into divisions, each named after a major deity, e.g. the division of Amun, the division of Ra. Soldiers were well trained and equipped with a variety of weapons, including bronze-tipped spears, battle axes, daggers, and the powerful composite bow, which had a longer range and greater penetrating power than the simple self-bow. Chariots manned by a driver and an archer served as mobile firing platforms, disrupting enemy formations and pursuing fleeing foes. Naval warfare also played a role, particularly in the defense of the Nile Delta and the suppression of piracy. The famous naval battle against the Sea Peoples, depicted on the walls of Medinet Habu, showcases the Egyptians' ability to adapt to new threats and defend their homeland against a formidable coalition of invaders. Successful military campaigns brought immense wealth to Egypt in the form of tribute, plunder, and slaves. Veterans were often rewarded with land, gold, and other honors, making a military career an attractive path for ambitious young men. The pharaoh, as the supreme commander, was often depicted as a heroic warrior, leading his troops into battle and smiting his enemies, a powerful image that reinforced his divine authority and martial prowess. The economy of ancient Egypt was primarily agrarian, based on the fertile lands of the Nile Valley. However, it was also a sophisticated system involving extensive trade networks, state-controlled industries, and a complex system of redistribution. The wealth of Egypt was not just in its agricultural surplus, but also in its abundant natural resources and its strategic position as a crossroads of trade. The state, under the control of the pharaoh, played a central role in the economy. All land was theoretically owned by the pharaoh, who granted estates to temples, nobles, and officials. The state collected taxes in the form of agricultural produce, livestock, and labor, which were then redistributed to support the bureaucracy, the army, and the priesthood. This system of redistribution ensured the stability of the state and funded massive public works projects. Trade was essential for acquiring resources not available in Egypt, such as timber, metals, and precious stones. The Egyptians engaged in extensive trade with neighboring regions, including Nubia, the Levant, Punt, a mysterious land believed to be in modern-day Somalia or Eritrea, and the Aegean. Nubia was a major source of gold, ivory, ebony, and exotic animals. The Levant provided timber, particularly cedar from Lebanon, as well as wine, oil, and other luxury goods. Punt was a source of incense, myrrh, and other aromatic resins highly valued for religious rituals. Trade was conducted through a combination of state-sponsored expeditions and private enterprise. The pharaohs sent large-scale expeditions to Punt and other distant lands, often documented in detailed inscriptions, such as the famous reliefs in Hatshepsut's temple at Deir el-Bahri. Private merchants also played a role, though their activities were often closely monitored by the state. Currency in the form of coinage did not exist for most of ancient Egyptian history. Instead, a barter system was used, with goods valued against a standard unit, such as a deben of copper or a sack of grain. This system, while seemingly cumbersome, was highly effective and allowed for complex commercial transactions. Beyond trade, the Egyptians developed various industries, including mining, quarrying, pottery, textiles, and shipbuilding. Mines in the eastern desert and Sinai yielded gold, copper, and turquoise. Quarries at Aswan and other sites provided the granite, limestone, and sandstone needed for monumental construction. Pottery and textiles were produced in workshops throughout the country, meeting both domestic and export demands. Shipbuilding was a vital industry, providing the vessels needed for transportation, trade, and warfare. This vibrant economy, fueled by agricultural abundance, extensive trade, and state-controlled industries, provided the wealth and resources that sustained ancient Egyptian civilization for millennia, enabling it to create its enduring legacy of monumental art, architecture, and cultural achievements. The decline of ancient Egypt was a long and complex process spanning several centuries and marked by a confluence of internal and external factors. There was no single cause for its downfall, but rather a gradual erosion of the political, economic, and social structures that had sustained it for so long. Internal factors played a significant role. The immense power and wealth of the priesthood, particularly the cult of Amun-Ra at Thebes, grew to rival that of the pharaoh, leading to political instability and a drain on the royal treasury. And succession disputes and weak rulers further weakened the central authority, allowing regional governors and military commanders to assert their independence. Economic problems also contributed to the decline. The cost of maintaining a large empire, funding massive building projects, and supporting a vast bureaucracy placed a heavy strain on the economy. Climate change, including periods of drought and low Nile floods, led to food shortages and social unrest. Labor strikes, such as the one recorded in the Turin Papyrus during the reign of Ramesses III, indicate growing economic hardship and dissatisfaction among the working class. Externally, Egypt faced a series of invasions and foreign domination. The Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of maritime raiders, posed a serious threat during the late New Kingdom, though they were ultimately repelled. The Libyans, who had long served as mercenaries in the Egyptian army, eventually seized power, establishing their own dynasty. The Nubians from the south also conquered Egypt, establishing the 25th dynasty and ruling as pharaohs. The Assyrians, with their superior iron weapons and ruthless military tactics, invaded Egypt in the 7th century BCE, sacking Thebes and ending Nubian rule. This was followed by the Persian conquest in 525 BCE, which incorporated Egypt into the vast Achaemenid Empire. While Egyptian culture and traditions persisted, the country was now a province of a foreign power. Alexander the Great's conquest of the Persian Empire in 332 BCE brought Egypt under Greek rule. The Ptolemaic dynasty, founded by one of Alexander's generals, ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries, blending Greek and Egyptian cultures in a fascinating synthesis. The city of Alexandria, with its famous library and lighthouse, became a center of learning and commerce in the Hellenistic world. Finally, the rise of Rome marked the end of ancient Egyptian independence. The death of Cleopatra VII in 30 BCE, following her defeat by Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, led to the annexation of Egypt as a Roman province. While the ancient traditions and religious practices continued for some time, they were gradually replaced by Roman culture and eventually Christianity. The decline of ancient Egypt was a poignant end to a civilization that had endured for over 3 millennia. However, its legacy did not disappear. Its art, architecture, religion, and scientific knowledge profoundly influenced subsequent civilizations, and its enduring mysteries continue to captivate the imagination of the world. The sands of time may have buried its cities and temples, but the spirit of ancient Egypt, with its profound wisdom and timeless beauty, lives on. Food and drink were central to ancient Egyptian life, not just for sustenance, but also for social interaction, religious offerings, and festive celebrations. The fertile Nile Valley provided an abundance of resources, allowing for a diverse and relatively healthy diet for most of the population. Bread and beer, the staples of life. The cornerstone of the Egyptian diet was bread, made primarily from emmer wheat. It was consumed at every meal and came in various shapes and sizes, from simple flatbreads to more elaborate loaves. The process of bread making was laborious, involving grinding grain, kneading dough, and baking in conical clay ovens. Beer, brewed from barley, was equally ubiquitous. It was a thick, nutritious beverage, often consumed by all ages, including children, and served as a significant source of calories and vitamins. Its low alcohol content made it a safe and hydrating alternative to water, which could be contaminated. Fruits, vegetables, and protein. Beyond bread and beer, the Egyptian diet was rich in fruits and vegetables. Dates, figs, grapes, pomegranates, and melons were common fruits, while vegetables included onions, garlic, leeks, lettuce, cucumbers, and beans. These were often eaten raw or cooked into stews. Fish from the Nile was a crucial source of protein, consumed regularly by all social classes. Meat, primarily beef, goat, and poultry ducks, geese, pigeons, was less common for the general population, reserved for special occasions, religious festivals, or the wealthy elite. Honey was the primary sweetener, used in desserts and as a medicinal ingredient. Feasting and celebrations. Festivals were an integral part of Egyptian life, blending religious observance with joyous celebration. These events, often tied to the agricultural cycle or the worship of specific deities, provided opportunities for communal feasting, music, dance, and revelry. The beautiful Festival of the Valley, for instance, was a time when families visited the tombs of their deceased relatives, sharing meals and offerings, reinforcing the bond between the living and the dead. The Opet Festival, a grand procession of divine barks from Karnak to Luxor, was a spectacle of religious devotion and public celebration, accompanied by singing, dancing, and abundant food and drink. Music and dance were deeply woven into the fabric of ancient Egyptian society, serving both religious and secular purposes. They were integral to temple rituals, funerary ceremonies, royal courts, and everyday social gatherings, providing entertainment, expressing emotions, and connecting individuals to the divine. Musical instruments. The Egyptians possessed a wide array of musical instruments. String instruments included harps of various sizes, from small portable ones to large standing harps, and lutes, which were plucked. Wind instruments featured flutes, clarinets, and oboes, often played in pairs. Percussion instruments included drums, tambourines, sistra, a rattle-like instrument used in religious ceremonies, and clappers. The sistrum, in particular, was associated with the goddess Hathor and was believed to ward off evil spirits. Dance and performance. Dance was a highly expressive art form, depicted in numerous tomb paintings and reliefs. Dancers, both male and female, performed a variety of styles, from slow, ritualistic movements in religious ceremonies to energetic, acrobatic dances for entertainment. Some dances were narrative, telling stories or reenacting myths, while others were purely for enjoyment. Professional dancers and musicians were often employed by temples, royal courts, and wealthy households, providing entertainment for banquets and celebrations. Games and pastimes. Beyond music and dance, ancient Egyptians enjoyed a variety of games and pastimes. Board games were particularly popular, with Senet being the most famous. Senet, meaning passing, was a game of strategy and luck, often played by two players on a board with 30 squares. It held deep religious significance, symbolizing the journey of the deceased through the underworld. Another popular game was Mehen, or the snake game, played on a spiral board. Children enjoyed various games, including wrestling, tug-of-war, and games with balls made of leather or papyrus. Storytelling and literature. Storytelling was a cherished form of entertainment passed down through generations. Ancient Egyptian literature encompassed a wide range of genres, including wisdom texts, hymns, myths, tales of adventure, and love poetry. The Tale of Sinuhe, a classic of Egyptian literature, recounts the adventures of a courtier who flees Egypt and returns years later as a respected figure. The Westcar Papyrus contains a collection of magical tales and anecdotes from the Old Kingdom. These literary works not only provided entertainment, but also conveyed moral lessons, historical narratives, and religious beliefs, offering valuable insights into the Egyptian worldview. While mummification was a central and iconic aspect of ancient Egyptian funerary practices, it was part of a much broader and elaborate set of rituals designed to ensure the deceased's successful transition to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that death was not an end, but a passage to another existence, a journey to the west, the land of the dead, where Osiris reigned. The funeral procession was a solemn and significant event, often depicted in tomb paintings. After the mummification process was complete, the mummy, encased in its coffin and sarcophagus, would be transported from the embalming workshop to the tomb. The procession was led by priests who performed rituals and chanted prayers. Professional mourners, often women, would wail and lament, tearing their clothes and covering themselves with dust to express grief and invoke the deceased's passage to the afterlife. Family members and friends followed, carrying offerings and funerary equipment. The opening of the mouth ceremony. One of the most crucial rituals performed at the tomb entrance was the opening of the mouth ceremony. This ritual, performed by a priest using special tools, was believed to reanimate the deceased's senses, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and speech, allowing them to eat, drink, and interact in the afterlife. It was a symbolic act of rebirth, ensuring that the Ka and Ba could reunite with the body and partake in the offerings. The ceremony involved touching various parts of the mummy's face and body with ritual implements, accompanied by incantations and prayers. Tomb offerings and funerary equipment. The tomb was considered the eternal home of the deceased, and it was meticulously prepared to provide for their needs in the afterlife. Offerings of food, drink, and incense were placed in the tomb, intended to sustain the Ka. These offerings were renewed periodically by family members or mortuary priests. The tomb was also filled with an array of funerary equipment designed to accompany the deceased on their journey and provide for their comfort and needs in the field of reeds. This equipment included furniture, clothing, jewelry, tools, weapons, and personal possessions. Crucially, the tomb contained Shabtai figures, small statuettes, intended to magically come to life and perform manual labor for the deceased in the afterlife, freeing them from toil. The number of Shabtis could be considerable, sometimes one for each day of the year, plus overseer figures. Models of boats, houses, and workshops were also included, reflecting the desire to replicate earthly life in the eternal realm. Funerary texts and spells. To guide the deceased through the perils of the underworld and ensure a favorable judgment, tombs were adorned with funerary texts and spells. The most famous of these is the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells, prayers, and hymns intended to assist the deceased in navigating the duat, overcoming obstacles, and passing the weighing of the heart ceremony. These texts were inscribed on tomb walls, sarcophagi, papyri, and even linen bandages wrapped around the mummy. Other funerary texts included the coffin text and the pyramid text, which were earlier collections of spells. The tomb as a microcosm of eternity. The tomb itself was a carefully constructed microcosm of the universe designed to protect the deceased and facilitate their eternal existence. The architecture, decorations, and contents of the tomb were all imbued with symbolic meaning, reflecting the Egyptian worldview and their profound belief in the continuity of life beyond death. The elaborate preparations for burial were not a morbid obsession, but a hopeful and practical investment in a glorious and eternal future. Compared to many other ancient civilizations, women in ancient Egypt enjoyed a remarkable degree of legal, economic, and social independence. While society was patriarchal and men generally held positions of authority, women were not confined to the domestic sphere and possessed rights that were often denied to their counterparts in other cultures. Legal and economic rights. Ancient Egyptian women had the right to own, inherit, and dispose of property, both real estate and personal goods. They could enter into contracts, conduct business, and initiate legal proceedings in their own name. Marriage was a civil contract, not a religious sacrament, and women had the right to divorce their husbands and retain their dowry and a share of the communal property. This legal equality, though not always reflected in practice, was a significant departure from the norms of many contemporary societies. Family and household. The primary role of women was within the family and household, where they managed domestic affairs, raised children, and prepared food. The mistress of the house held considerable authority within her domain. While men were typically the public face of the family, women played a crucial role in maintaining the household's economic stability and social well-being. They were often depicted alongside their husbands in tomb scenes, emphasizing their partnership and shared responsibilities. Professions and public life. While most women engaged in domestic work, some pursued professions outside the home. Women worked as weavers, bakers, entertainers, musicians, dancers, acrobats, and even physicians. In the religious sphere, women could serve as priestesses, particularly in the cults of goddesses like Hathor, Isis, and Neith. These roles often conferred significant social standing and influence. Royal women, particularly queen mothers and principal wives, wielded considerable power, sometimes even ruling as pharaohs, as exemplified by Hatshepsut. Queens and pharaohs. The position of queen in ancient Egypt was often one of great influence. The great royal wife, the principal consort of the pharaoh, played a vital role in religious ceremonies and state affairs. Queens like Nefertiti, Tiye, and Nefertari are famous for their beauty, intelligence, and political acumen. In rare but significant instances, women ascended to the throne as pharaohs, ruling in their own right. Hatshepsut, one of the most successful pharaohs, ruled for over 2 decades, commissioning monumental building projects and leading military expeditions. Other female pharaohs included Sobekneferu and Tuzret, demonstrating that while rare, female rule was not entirely unprecedented. Symbolism and idealization. In art and literature, women were often idealized, depicted as beautiful, graceful, and nurturing. The goddess Isis, the epitome of maternal love and devotion, served as a powerful role model. While these depictions may not always reflect the realities of everyday life, they underscore the high regard in which women were held within the cultural and religious framework of ancient Egypt. The relative freedom and respect accorded to women in ancient Egypt stand as a remarkable aspect of this enduring civilization, highlighting its progressive social values in comparison to many of its contemporaries. Ancient Egyptian art was not merely decorative, it was a powerful language, imbued with deep religious, symbolic, and magical meaning. Every image, every sculpture, every architectural element served a purpose beyond aesthetics, communicating profound truths about the cosmos, the gods, the pharaoh, and the journey to the afterlife. This art was characterized by its formality, adherence to strict conventions, and a timeless quality that aimed to convey eternal truths rather than fleeting moments. Conventions and canon. Egyptian art followed a strict canon of proportions and conventions that remained remarkably consistent for millennia. Figures were typically depicted in a composite view, with the head in profile, the eye in frontal view, the torso in frontal view, and the legs and feet in profile. This allowed for the most complete representation of the human form, ensuring that all essential features were visible. Size often indicated importance, with pharaohs and deities depicted larger than commoners. Color also held symbolic meaning: red for vitality, blue for divinity in the heavens, green for regeneration, and black for the fertile soil of the Nile and the underworld. Sculpture. Embodiments of the divine. Egyptian sculpture, whether monumental statues or delicate figurines, aimed to capture the idealized form and eternal essence of its subjects. Statues of pharaohs and deities were not just representations, but were believed to be imbued with the Ka, the life force of the individual they depicted. They served as conduits for divine power and as eternal dwelling places for the deceased. Materials like granite, basalt, and diorite were favored for their durability, reflecting the desire for permanence and immortality. The serene, often impassive expressions on the faces of statues conveyed a sense of timelessness and divine calm. Reliefs and paintings, narratives of life and afterlife. Tomb walls, temple pylons, and sarcophagi were adorned with intricate reliefs and vibrant paintings that served as visual narratives. These depicted scenes from daily life, religious rituals, mythological events, and the journey of the deceased through the underworld. The purpose of these scenes was not merely to decorate, but to magically ensure the continuation of these activities in the afterlife and to provide guidance for the deceased. For example, scenes of banquets and offerings were meant to guarantee sustenance for the Ka, while depictions of agricultural labor ensured a bountiful existence in the field of reeds. Symbolism, a rich lexicon. Egyptian art was rich in symbolism, with every animal, plant, and object carrying specific meanings. The Ankh, the looped cross, symbolized life. The scarab beetle represented rebirth and regeneration. The lotus flower symbolized creation and renewal, often associated with the sun god. Animals like the falcon, Horus, the ibis, Thoth, and the cobra, Uraeus, a symbol of royalty and divine authority, were sacred and represented specific deities or concepts. The eye of Horus, Wedjat eye, was a powerful protective amulet symbolizing healing and restoration. Jewelry and amulets, adornment and protection. Jewelry was not only a form of adornment, but also served as powerful amulets, providing protection and conveying status. Necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and pectorals were crafted from gold, silver, faience, and a variety of semi-precious stones like lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian. Each piece was often imbued with symbolic meaning, incorporating protective symbols and divine imagery. Amulets worn by the living and placed on mummies were believed to ward off evil, bring good fortune, and ensure a safe passage to the afterlife. In essence, ancient Egyptian art was a holistic system where form, color, and symbol converged to create a powerful and enduring visual language. It was a testament to their profound spiritual beliefs and their unwavering quest for eternity, leaving behind a legacy of artistic masterpieces that continue to inspire awe and wonder. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in November 1922 by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon remains one of the most sensational archaeological finds in history. Unlike most other pharaonic tombs, which had been plundered in antiquity, Tutankhamun's burial chamber was found almost entirely intact, offering an unprecedented glimpse into the wealth, artistry, and funerary practices of ancient Egypt. The sheer volume and exquisite craftsmanship of the artifacts unearthed captivated the world, igniting a renewed fascination with Egyptian civilization. Tutankhamun, often referred to as the Boy King ruled for a relatively short period during the 18th dynasty of the New Kingdom, c. 1332-1323 BCE. His reign followed the tumultuous Amarna period, during which his predecessor Akhenaten had attempted to establish a monotheistic worship of the Aten, the sun disk. Tutankhamun, guided by his powerful viziers, restored the traditional polytheistic religion and moved the capital back to Thebes. Despite his brief reign and relatively minor historical significance during his lifetime, his tomb's discovery propelled him to global fame. The tomb, designated KV-62 in the Valley of the Kings, was remarkably small for a pharaoh, suggesting that it may have been an improvised burial site. However, its contents were anything but modest. Over 50 artifacts were meticulously cataloged and removed over a period of 10 years, providing an unparalleled treasury of information about ancient Egyptian life, art, and beliefs. Among the most iconic treasures was Tutankhamun's solid gold death mask, a masterpiece of ancient Egyptian art, weighing over 10 kilograms and inlaid with lapis lazuli, quartz, and obsidian. The sarcophagus contained 3 nested coffins, the innermost of which was also made of solid gold. The king's mummy, adorned with countless amulets and jewelry, lay within, preserved for eternity. The tomb also yielded a vast array of personal possessions, including furniture, chariots, weapons, clothing, and games, offering intimate details about the pharaoh's daily life and leisure activities. Religious artifacts such as statues of deities, ritual objects, and funerary texts provided invaluable insights into ancient Egyptian religious practices and their elaborate preparations for the afterlife. The sheer opulence of the burial goods underscored the Egyptians' profound belief in the continuity of life beyond death and their desire to provide the deceased with everything they might need in the eternal realm. The discovery was not without its challenges and controversies. The so-called Curse of the Pharaohs, fueled by the mysterious deaths of several individuals associated with the excavation, added to the mystique surrounding the tomb. While modern science has debunked these supernatural claims, attributing the deaths to natural causes or pre-existing conditions, the legend continues to capture the public imagination. Beyond the sensationalism, Tutankhamun's tomb provided an invaluable archaeological record. It allowed scholars to reconstruct aspects of the 18th dynasty, understand the transition back to traditional religion after Akhenaten's reforms, and gain a deeper appreciation for the artistic and technological achievements of ancient Egypt. The meticulous documentation by Carter and his team set new standards for archaeological excavation, ensuring that the context of each artifact was preserved. In essence, the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was more than just finding a treasure hoard. It was a profound moment that reconnected the modern world with the ancient past, offering a tangible link to a civilization that had long fascinated humanity. It continues to be a source of inspiration for researchers, artists, and enthusiasts, reminding us of the enduring power and allure of ancient Egypt. The influence of ancient Egypt extends far beyond the sands of its deserts and the confines of its historical timeline. Its art, architecture, mythology, and mystique have permeated modern culture, leaving an indelible mark on literature, film, art, fashion, and even popular imagination. The echoes of the Nile resonate in countless aspects of our contemporary world, demonstrating the timeless appeal of this remarkable civilization. Literature and film, mummies, pharaohs, and adventures. Ancient Egypt has provided fertile ground for countless literary works and cinematic productions. The fascination with mummies, curses, and hidden treasures began in the 19th century with the rise of Egyptology and the discovery of ancient tombs. Bram Stoker's 1903 novel, The Jewel of Seven Stars, and Arthur Conan Doyle's The Ring of Thoth are early examples of the mummy's enduring presence in horror and adventure fiction. The iconic 1932 film, The Mummy, starring Boris Karloff, cemented the image of the resurrected ancient Egyptian in popular culture, a trope that has been revisited and reimagined countless times, from the Indiana Jones series to the more recent Mummy franchise. Historical dramas, such as Cleopatra 1963, starring Elizabeth Taylor, and animated films like The Prince of Egypt 1998, have brought the stories of pharaohs, queens, and biblical narratives to a global audience. These portrayals, while often romanticized or fictionalized, have played a significant role in shaping public perception and maintaining interest in ancient Egyptian history. Art and architecture, revival and inspiration. The artistic and architectural forms of ancient Egypt have inspired numerous revival movements throughout history. The Egyptian revival style, particularly prominent in the 19th and early 20th centuries, saw the incorporation of Egyptian motifs such as obelisks, pyramids, sphinxes, and hieroglyphs into architecture, furniture, and decorative arts. This influence can be seen in buildings like the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, various cemeteries, and even the design of everyday objects. Modern artists continue to draw inspiration from ancient Egyptian aesthetics, incorporating its symbolism, color palettes, and formal qualities into contemporary works. The enduring appeal of its timeless forms and profound symbolism ensures its continued relevance in the visual arts. Fashion and design. Ancient allure. Ancient Egyptian fashion, characterized by its elegant simplicity, flowing linen garments, and elaborate jewelry, has periodically influenced modern design. The iconic kohl eyeliner, elaborate headdresses, and intricate collars have been reinterpreted by fashion designers, bringing an ancient allure to contemporary runways. The use of gold, lapis lazuli, and other precious materials, along with symbolic motifs like the scarab and the ankh, continues to inspire jewelry designers. Popular culture and beyond. Games, music, and mysticism. Ancient Egypt's mystique has found its way into video games, board games, and even music. Games like Assassin's Creed Origins and Total War. Pharaoh immersed players in historically inspired settings, allowing them to explore ancient cities and engage with historical figures. The imagery of pyramids, sphinxes, and hieroglyphs is instantly recognizable and frequently used in various forms of media. Beyond entertainment, ancient Egyptian beliefs and practices have influenced various esoteric and spiritual movements, from Freemasonry to New Age philosophies. The concepts of the afterlife, mummification, and the wisdom of the ancients continue to be explored and reinterpreted in contemporary spiritual contexts. In conclusion, the legacy of ancient Egypt is not confined to museums and history books. It is a living, breathing presence in modern culture. Its monumental achievements, profound beliefs, and enduring mysteries continue to captivate and inspire, reminding us of the timeless power of human creativity and the enduring allure of a civilization that sought to conquer eternity. The fertile lands of the Nile Valley were the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, and agriculture formed the bedrock of its economy and society. The annual inundation of the Nile, a predictable and benevolent flood, deposited rich black silt, transforming the arid landscape into a verdant agricultural paradise. This natural phenomenon allowed the Egyptians to cultivate a surplus of crops, supporting a large population and enabling the specialization of labor that characterized their sophisticated civilization. The agricultural cycle. The agricultural year in Egypt was divided into three main seasons dictated by the Nile's flood cycle: Akhet, inundation; Pereh, growing; and Shimu, harvest. During Akhet, roughly July to October, the Nile overflowed its banks, depositing fertile silt. Farmers used this time to repair tools, maintain irrigation channels, and prepare for the next planting season. As the floodwaters receded in Pereh, November to February, the rich, moist soil was ready for planting. Emmer wheat and barley were the primary crops used to make bread and beer, the staples of the Egyptian diet. Flax was also widely cultivated for linen production, used for clothing and other textiles. Vegetables like onions, garlic, leeks, and beans, along with fruits such as dates, figs, and grapes, were grown in gardens and orchards. Shemu, March to June, was the harvest season, a period of intense labor. Farmers, often assisted by their families, would cut the ripe grain with sickles, thresh it to separate the kernels from the stalks, and then winnow it to remove the chaff. The harvested grain was then stored in granaries, often under the supervision of state officials. as a significant portion was collected as taxes. Irrigation and land management. The Egyptians developed sophisticated irrigation techniques to maximize the use of the Nile's waters. They constructed a complex network of canals, dikes, and basins to control the floodwaters, directing them to fields that were not directly inundated. The Shadoof, a simple but effective water lifting device, allowed farmers to raise water from the Nile or canals to higher ground for irrigation. This mastery of water management was crucial for ensuring consistent harvests and supporting the dense population of the Nile Valley. Beyond farming, a diverse workforce. While agriculture employed the vast majority of the population, ancient Egypt boasted a diverse range of professions, reflecting a highly specialized and organized society. These professions were often hereditary, passed down from father to son, ensuring the continuity of skills and knowledge. Craftsmen and artisans. This group included stonemasons, carpenters, potters, weavers, jewelers, metalworkers, and painters. They produced everything from utilitarian objects for daily life to exquisite works of art for temples, tombs, and the elite. Their skills were highly valued, and many worked in workshops attached to temples or royal palaces. The quality and intricacy of their work, particularly in gold and precious stones, are evident in the treasures found in tombs like that of Tutankhamun. Scribes, as discussed earlier, scribes held a privileged position due to their literacy. They were essential for administration, record keeping, and the preservation of knowledge. They worked in government offices, temples, and private estates, managing accounts, drafting legal documents, and copying literary and religious texts. Priests and priestesses. These individuals were responsible for the worship of the gods, the maintenance of temples, and the performance of religious rituals. They managed the vast estates of the temples, which often held significant economic power, and served as intermediaries between humanity and the divine. Soldiers. While not a permanent standing army in the earliest periods, soldiers became increasingly important, especially during the New Kingdom. They defended borders, suppressed rebellions, and expanded the empire. Military service offered opportunities for social advancement and rewards. Merchants and traders. While the state controlled much of the long-distance trade, there were also private merchants who facilitated local and regional exchange. They traded agricultural surplus, manufactured goods, and imported luxury items. Fishermen and hunters. The Nile provided abundant fish, a crucial protein source. Fishermen used nets, hooks, and harpoons. Hunting, while less significant for sustenance, was a popular pastime for the elite, providing game like gazelles, antelopes, and various birds. Servants and laborers. At the bottom of the social hierarchy were the vast numbers of unskilled laborers who performed manual tasks, including construction work on monumental projects, quarrying, and domestic service. While their lives were arduous, they were essential for the functioning of society. The intricate interplay between agriculture and these diverse professions allowed ancient Egypt to thrive for millennia, creating a complex and vibrant civilization that left an enduring legacy of innovation and cultural achievement. The organization of labor, the efficient management of resources, and the specialization of skills were all crucial factors in its remarkable longevity and prosperity. While the grand narratives of pharaohs, priests, and monumental constructions often dominate our understanding of ancient Egypt, the vast majority of the population consisted of common people, farmers, laborers, artisans, and their families. Their daily lives, though less documented in elaborate tombs, formed the essential fabric of this enduring civilization. Their homes, clothing, and social interactions reveal a practical, community-oriented existence deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the Nile and the prevailing cultural norms. Homes, mud brick, and practicality. The homes of common Egyptians were typically constructed from mud brick, a readily available and effective material for insulation against the desert heat. These bricks were made from Nile mud mixed with straw, molded, and then dried in the sun. Houses were often built close together, forming dense villages along the fertile strip of land bordering the Nile. The size and complexity of a home varied with the family's wealth and status, but most were modest, functional dwellings. A typical commoner's house might consist of a few rooms, often arranged around a central courtyard. The courtyard served as a versatile outdoor living space used for cooking, eating, socializing, and performing various household chores. Many homes also featured a flat rooftop terrace, which provided an additional cool sleeping area during hot summer nights, a place for storage, or even a space for small workshops. Windows were usually small and placed high to minimize direct sunlight and keep interiors cool, while doors were often made of wood or woven mats. Furniture was sparse but practical, reflecting a lifestyle that often took place outdoors or on the floor. Low stools, reed mats for sleeping, and simple wooden chests for storage were common. Clay pots and jars were essential for storing water, grain, and other foodstuffs, while small ovens or braziers were used for cooking. Clothing, linen, and simplicity. Ancient Egyptian clothing was primarily made from linen, a lightweight, breathable fabric perfectly suited to the hot climate. Wool was rarely used, as it was considered impure. The style of clothing was generally simple and functional, with variations reflecting social status and gender. Men typically wore a kilt or loincloth, often pleated or draped. In warmer weather, they might go shirtless, while in cooler seasons or for formal occasions, they might add a tunic or a long flowing robe. Women wore long sheath-like dresses that extended from the shoulders to the ankles, often held in place by one or two shoulder straps. These dresses could be simple or elaborately pleated and draped, especially for wealthier women. Uh, Children often went naked, particularly in their early years, or wore simple tunics. Both men and women adorned themselves with jewelry, which served not only as decoration but also as amulets for protection. Necklaces, bracelets, anklets, and earrings made from faience, carnelian, turquoise, and gold were popular. Cosmetics, particularly kohl eyeliner, were widely used by both sexes, not just for aesthetic purposes, but also to protect the eyes from the glare of the sun and to deter insects. Perfumes and scented oils made from natural ingredients were also common. Social interactions and community life. Community life was strong in ancient Egypt, particularly in villages where people lived in close proximity and often shared common occupations. Family was the fundamental social unit, and extended families often lived together or nearby, providing mutual support. Respect for elders and filial piety were highly valued. Social interactions revolved around daily work, religious festivals, and communal gatherings. Neighbors would assist each other with agricultural tasks, share resources, and participate in local rituals. The local temple often served as a social hub where people gathered for religious ceremonies, offerings, and community events. Markets, though less formal than in later civilizations, provided opportunities for trade and social exchange. Leisure activities were an important part of life. Storytelling, music, and dance were popular forms of entertainment. Board games like Senet were enjoyed by all social classes. Children played with simple toys and engaged in various outdoor games. Feasting and celebrations, often accompanied by beer and wine, were common during religious festivals and family milestones. Despite the hierarchical nature of society, there was a sense of collective identity and shared purpose, particularly in the maintenance of Ma'at and the prosperity of Egypt. The common people, through their labor and adherence to tradition, formed the essential foundation upon which the grandeur of ancient Egyptian civilization was built, ensuring its longevity and enduring legacy. Their practical wisdom, resilience, and deep connection to their land and beliefs were as vital to Egypt's success as the monumental achievements of its pharaohs. The influence of ancient Egypt, a civilization that ceased to exist as an independent entity millennia ago, continues to resonate profoundly in the modern world. Its monumental achievements, profound philosophical concepts, and captivating mystique have permeated various aspects of contemporary culture, from architecture and art to literature, film, and even popular imagination. The echoes of the Nile are still heard, shaping our understanding of history, inspiring creativity, and fueling an enduring fascination. Architectural and artistic inspiration. The architectural grandeur of ancient Egypt, particularly its pyramids, obelisks, and temples, has served as a perennial source of inspiration for architects and designers across centuries. The Egyptian revival style, prominent in the 19th and early 20th centuries, saw the incorporation of Egyptian motifs into public buildings, cemeteries, and even household furniture. Examples include the Washington Monument, which is an obelisk, and numerous Masonic temples and cemeteries adorned with Egyptian symbols. Modern architects continue to draw upon the principles of scale, monumentality, and symbolic form evident in ancient Egyptian structures. In art, the stylized forms, vibrant colors, and symbolic richness of Egyptian painting and sculpture have influenced countless artists. From the Art Deco movement, which drew heavily on Egyptian motifs, to contemporary artists who reinterpret ancient themes, the aesthetic legacy of Egypt remains potent. The iconic imagery of pharaohs, deities, hieroglyphs, and funerary art is instantly recognizable and frequently referenced in global visual culture. Literature and film, the allure of the mummy and the pharaoh. Ancient Egypt has provided fertile ground for literary and cinematic narratives, particularly those exploring themes of mystery, adventure, and the supernatural. The fascination with mummies, curses, and hidden treasures gained widespread popularity in the 19th century, with the rise of Egyptology and the sensational discoveries of tombs. Bram Stoker's The Jewel of Seven Stars and Arthur Conan Doyle's The Ring of Thoth are early examples of the mummy's enduring presence in horror and adventure fiction. The 1932 film The Mummy, starring Boris Karloff, cemented the image of the resurrected ancient Egyptian in popular culture, a trope that has been revisited and reimagined countless times, from the Indiana Jones series, which often features Egyptian-inspired puzzles and artifacts, to the more recent The Mummy franchise. Hollywood has consistently drawn upon the allure of ancient Egypt. Historical dramas like Cleopatra, 1963, and animated films such as The Prince of Egypt, 1998, have brought the stories of pharaohs, queens, and biblical narratives to a global audience, albeit often with significant artistic license. Symbolism and mysticism. The rich symbolism of ancient Egypt has been adopted and reinterpreted by various esoteric and spiritual movements. The Ankh, the Eye of Horus, and the scarab beetle are just a few examples of symbols that have transcended their original context to become universally recognized. Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and various New Age philosophies have incorporated Egyptian themes and symbols into their rituals and beliefs, often attributing profound mystical significance to them. This appropriation, while sometimes historically inaccurate, speaks to the enduring power and perceived wisdom of ancient Egyptian thought. Science and technology, foundations of knowledge. While often overshadowed by their artistic and architectural achievements, the ancient Egyptians made significant contributions to science and technology that laid foundations for future civilizations. Their advancements in mathematics, particularly geometry, were crucial for their monumental construction projects and land surveying after the annual Nile floods. Their sophisticated understanding of astronomy led to the development of a highly accurate 365-day calendar, which influenced the Julian calendar and, by extension, our modern calendar system. In medicine, the Egyptians possessed a remarkable understanding of anatomy and surgical procedures, as evidenced by medical papyri like the Edwin Smith Papyrus. Their knowledge of herbal remedies and diagnostic techniques was advanced for their time. These early scientific endeavors, though often intertwined with magical and religious beliefs, represent a crucial step in the development of human knowledge. Egyptology, a continuing quest for knowledge. The field of Egyptology, the scientific study of ancient Egypt, continues to thrive, fueled by ongoing archaeological discoveries and new research methodologies. Each new find, from previously undiscovered tombs to deciphered texts, adds another layer to our understanding of this complex civilization. The meticulous work of archaeologists, philologists, and historians ensures that the legacy of ancient Egypt is not merely preserved but continually reinterpreted and brought to life for new generations. In essence, ancient Egypt is not just a chapter in history, it is a living presence that continues to inspire, educate, and captivate. Its enduring legacy serves as a powerful reminder of humanity's timeless quest for meaning, immortality, and a harmonious existence with the cosmos, echoing through the ages and enriching the tapestry of global culture. The modern fascination with ancient Egypt can largely be attributed to a series of pivotal discoveries and the subsequent emergence of Egyptology as a dedicated field of study. For centuries, the secrets of this ancient civilization lay buried beneath the sands, their hieroglyphs unreadable, their history shrouded in mystery. It was not until the late 18th and 19th centuries that a confluence of military campaigns, scientific expeditions, and intellectual curiosity began to unlock the profound depths of Egyptian antiquity. Napoleon's expedition and the Rosetta Stone. The catalyst for modern Egyptology was Napoleon Bonaparte's military campaign in Egypt, 1798-1801. While a military failure, the expedition was accompanied by a contingent of over 160 scholars, scientists, and artists, collectively known as the savants. Their meticulous documentation of Egyptian monuments, flora, fauna, and customs, published in the monumental Description de l'Egypte, provided the first comprehensive scientific survey of the country and its ancient heritage. The most significant discovery of this expedition was the Rosetta Stone in 1799. This basalt stele, inscribed with the same decree in three scripts, hieroglyphic, demotic, and ancient Greek, provided the crucial key to deciphering ancient Egyptian writing. For over 2 decades, scholars across Europe grappled with the inscription, but it was the brilliant French linguist Jean-François Champollion who, in 1822, finally cracked the code. By comparing the Greek text with the hieroglyphic and demotic versions, Champollion was able to identify phonetic values for many hieroglyphs, opening up the vast archive of ancient Egyptian texts and effectively giving voice to a lost civilization. Early explorers and the rise of antiquarianism. Following Napoleon's expedition and Champollion's breakthrough, Egypt became a magnet for European explorers, adventurers, and antiquarians. Figures like Giovanni Battista Belzoni, a former circus strongman, engaged in often destructive methods of excavation, removing colossal statues and artifacts for European museums. While their methods were crude by modern standards, they brought an unprecedented number of Egyptian artifacts to the attention of the Western world, fueling public interest in the nascent field of Egyptology. Auguste Mariette and the birth of scientific archaeology. The mid-19th century saw a shift towards more systematic and scientific approaches to archaeology, largely championed by Auguste Mariette. Appointed as the first conservator of Egyptian antiquities in 1858, Mariette established the Egyptian Antiquities Service and the Bulaq Museum, which later became the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. He implemented stricter controls over excavations, aiming to keep artifacts in Egypt and preserve archaeological sites. His major discoveries included the Serapeum at Saqqara, the Temple of Seti I at Abydos, and the Sphinx Temple at Giza, among others. Mariette's work laid the groundwork for modern archaeological practices in Egypt. Flinders Petrie and methodical excavation. Sir Flinders Petrie, often considered the father of modern Egyptology, revolutionized archaeological methodology in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He emphasized meticulous recording of all finds, including pottery shards and everyday objects, not just monumental treasures. His pioneering work on stratigraphy, the study of layers of archaeological deposits, and seriation dating artifacts based on their stylistic evolution, transformed archaeology into a rigorous scientific discipline. Petrie's excavations at sites like Abydos, Amarna, and Naqada provided invaluable data for understanding Egyptian chronology and daily life. Howard Carter and Tutankhamun's tomb. The pinnacle of early 20th century Egyptology was the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 by Howard Carter and his patron Lord Carnarvon. As discussed previously, the tomb's intact state and its unparalleled treasures captivated the world and brought ancient Egypt into the global spotlight. Carter's meticulous documentation, though slow and painstaking, set new standards for archaeological recording and conservation, ensuring that the context of each artifact was preserved for future study. Modern Egyptology Interdisciplinary approaches. Today, Egyptology is a highly interdisciplinary field, drawing upon archaeology, philology, history, art history, anthropology, and scientific techniques like DNA analysis, remote sensing, and advanced imaging. International teams of scholars continue to excavate, preserve, and interpret the vast archaeological heritage of Egypt. New discoveries are still being made, from previously unknown tombs and cities to papyri that shed new light on ancient Egyptian society, religion, and daily life. The great discoveries of the past, from the Rosetta Stone to Tutankhamun's tomb, not only unveiled the grandeur of ancient Egypt, but also sparked a global fascination that continues to drive research and inspire generations. Egyptology remains a vibrant and dynamic field, constantly expanding our knowledge of one of the world's most enduring and captivating civilizations. Ancient Egypt, a civilization that spanned over 3 millennia, stands as an unparalleled testament to human achievement, resilience, and a profound connection to the spiritual realm. From its origins as a collection of small settlements along the fertile Nile, it blossomed into a powerful empire, leaving behind a legacy of monumental architecture, intricate art, sophisticated social structures, and a rich tapestry of beliefs that continue to captivate the modern world. We have journeyed through the daily lives of its people, from the humble farmers tilling the fertile soil to the skilled artisans crafting exquisite treasures. We have explored their intricate religious beliefs, their unwavering faith in the afterlife, and the meticulous preparations they undertook to ensure a blessed eternal existence. We have marveled at their scientific and technological prowess, evident in their advanced understanding of mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and engineering, which enabled them to construct wonders that defy time. The pharaohs, as divine rulers, guided this civilization through periods of immense prosperity and occasional turmoil, their reigns marked by ambitious building projects and the relentless pursuit of Ma'at. Cosmic order and justice, the sacred language of hieroglyphs, once a mystery, now allows us to decipher their thoughts, their histories, and their profound wisdom. The role of women, often more empowered than in many contemporary societies, highlights a progressive aspect of their social fabric. Even in its decline, ancient Egypt's influence did not wane. Its artistic conventions, architectural forms, and mythological narratives permeated subsequent cultures, from the Greeks and Romans to the Renaissance and beyond. The rediscovery of its wonders, sparked by Napoleon's expedition and cemented by Champollion's decipherment of the Rosetta Stone, gave birth to Egyptology, a vibrant field that continues to unearth new secrets and deepen our understanding. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, a pristine capsule of ancient life, reignited global fascination, bringing the boy king and his treasures into the modern consciousness. Today, the echoes of ancient Egypt are ubiquitous in popular culture, from blockbuster films and video games to fashion and art, demonstrating its timeless allure and enduring impact on the human imagination. In essence, ancient Egypt was more than just a civilization. It was a grand experiment in living in harmony with nature, the divine, and the cosmos. Its legacy is a powerful reminder of humanity's capacity for creativity, innovation, and spiritual depth. The sands of time may have covered its cities, but the spirit of ancient Egypt, with its profound wisdom, its timeless beauty, and its unwavering quest for eternity, continues to inspire awe and wonder, inviting us to delve deeper into its mysteries and learn from its enduring wisdom.